podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn and welcome to How We're the Podcast. And finally, we can build up to the final fixture in the regulation season because it feels like we've been waiting for it to be done and dusted for an absolute age. But despite the fact we've got bigger things to come, it's always good to preview the opposition and the game ahead. So first of all, I've got our very own walking, talking Guinness advert. It's Gavin Henderson. All right, mate?
I'm very good, mate. Very good. No
That's
Guinness since Saturday, so...
No. Sweated it all out by now, have you?
Well, with this weather, I've got no choice, have I?
Oh, didn't talk to me about the weather. I'm a big lad, Gav, and, if big lads struggle in the heat, you know what I mean? Struggling right now. But anyway, we'll get into the game because to help us talk everything Queen's Park Rangers, we have Clive Whittingham from Loft for Words. Welcome, Clive.
All right, lads, how are we doing?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Like I said, struggling in this heat, but we'll crack on. Loft for Words, by the way. Love the title. So, do you want to tell us all about it?
Yeah, it's been going. I think this is our 20th season doing it. It used to be the Rivals site when the Rivals network was kicking round, and the QPR site, the editors left, and it just sort of. It muddled along for about a year, and then I just emailed the guy that was sort of tidying it over and said, "Do you fancy some help?" And he was like, "Here's the keys. I'm sure you'll enjoy it." And I've 20 years later, I'm still here doing it. So yeah, it's a good community, and we've got some good lads on there. Bloody
hell, Gav! Just throw that to you because that sounds pretty much how you started at Rock Report.
Yeah, that is literally my story as well. Yeah. Funny, isn't it, how these things work out? But still loving it, I presume, Clive. You've got to be, haven't you? You've got to labour of love because we're not.
I didn't think I'd be doing it 20 years later. I mean, you'll know. Like it turns your hobby into your job, which, it's kind of the dream, right? You want the job that you love, but also, when times are tough, and they're tough quite often at QPR, the last thing you want to do if you've been beat 5-0 by Burnley is get up on Sunday morning and crop and edit 85 photographs and, write 2,000 words and, moderate a message board that's melting into the ground and stuff like that. So, it can be a little bit of a blessing and a curse, but sort of first world problems, I guess.
Well, that's it. That's why I mentioned Gav being our walking, talking Guinness advert because, first thing Sunday morning after getting beat at Oxford 2-0, game that nobody cares about. He's up at God knows what time talking about it. He's just a glutton for punishment. So in terms of QPR, I mean, how far does that go back for you then, Clive?
Dennis Bailey, Old Trafford, 1990, New Year's Day, 92.
Yeah. Hammered them, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'd shown no interest in football. Like, my dad was rabid, like absolutely balmy QPR fan. Went to every game home and away from Grimsby. I had to come home from hospital in a taxi when I was born because we were playing Newcastle that day, which was the 5-5 when we were 4-0 down at half time. So that was the first time I was a single parent family. And my mum was just like, "You're not allowed to be one of these dads that forces it on him. Like, if he comes to you with it, then that's fine, but we're not having him in QPR pajamas and all of this." So first sort of 6, 7, 8 years of my life, I didn't really care, and all the lads at school took the mick out of me for it. And obviously living in Grimsby, everyone's a Man United fan, so I just remember sort of toddling into the living room, and it was on ITV on New Year's Day, and the whole family were there, and Dad was at the game, and I was like, "Is that Dad's team beating Man United 4-1 on the television?" And like, you could just see my mum was like, "Oh God," and she was like, "Yeah, you can stay up late and ask him about it when he comes home if you like." So I waited on the step for him to come home all drunk from Old Trafford, and that was it. It took me next game, Southampton away, back of the car from Grimsby, my little QPR scarf on. We lost 2-0 and missed a penalty, and I was bored and cold, and have been bored and cold at every QPR game ever since, basically.
That was it. It sounded like me with my lad trying to get him into Sunderland while we're in League One, clipping him around the back of the head saying, you will go to watch us play at Shrewsbury and draw 1-1 in the howling wind and rain. He was like, this is rubbish, Dad. Crack around the back of the head. No, it's not. You gotta. This is your life ahead. But you go back that long then. So you go back to the plastic pitch then.
That's just after the plastic pitch, but so that was like mid and late 80s, and the great Guinness kit and Terry Venables and Terry Fenwick and all of those greats. I was born slightly too late, sadly. I've had to put up with years of Carl Reddy and Tony Roberts, and meatheads like that. So it's there was a Delta Act, so it's not all been bad.
Yeah. Well, you timed it perfect though for those first few years, because you were like top half of the Premier League. Les Ferdinand banging them in every year.
It's my first season ticket season. We finished 5th in the Premier League, and we've never been that high again. So I'm starting to take it personally and think it was maybe me that's done it.
Well, that's it. Well, going back, let's say like the last decade or so, because this is the 10th year that QPR have been outside the Premier League. And it's funny because, it's funny, me and Gav do quite a lot of these previews, and we come up with, listening to people who are supporting these clubs in the Championship. And you find when you go through it, like these clubs have been in the Championship for like 8, 9, 10 years, and there's a bunch of clubs that have been in there that long, and you kind of almost forget about them because they just end up hovering around the mid-table of the Championship. But going back to the memories, because when QPR were in kind of the headlines, I suppose, when they got relegated from that Premier League, they were an absolute kind of mess when they got relegated, and they were famous for bringing in all those players on huge money. I mean, how long did that put you back in terms of, that period of spending? Because back in the Championship, you haven't finished higher than 9th in the last 10 years.
Well, I think we still are suffering from that. I think, you can trace everything that's wrong at QPR, and every problem we're having, you can trace it back to that little ruinous period there where we went in the Premier League and just got new owners, Tony Fernandez and the Tune Group and whatever, and just absolutely lost our minds. Like, spent all the money and more, and didn't improve the ground, didn't build a training ground. We have the one thing these owners have done, they have got a new training ground built and actually invested in some infrastructure belatedly. But at the time we went in the Premier League, we just did all our money, tipped it into arseholes like Joey Barton and things like that, got relegated, and then basically financially doped ourselves back up again with an £84 million wage bill in the Championship, and didn't learn the lesson, just went back in the Premier League and did it all over again. Harry Redknapp, Rio Ferdinand, all of this, like just not learning the lessons. And also now when you come back to the Championship, got this enormous FFP fine for how you did it the first time. And we've never really been able to recover because like the parachute payments all went into covering up that mess and paying off wages and whatever. So now we're just one of those Championship clubs that's got an 18,000 seater stadium, huge overheads, lose about £2 million a month. Your FFP means you can't really spend on the team, and we just sort of dodder along in 16ths, and it's really difficult to see, how we ever break that cycle, really, to be honest. I think it's more likely we'd go in the other direction than up again now, just because of the sort of financial realities of it.
Yeah. And Gav, I mean, just from a outsider's point of view, because I'm going to apologise in advance for this, Clive, when I say this to Gav, but from an outsider's point of view, Gav, it was almost fun to watch, wasn't it? It was almost like the computer games where you can just buy anyone, and for no matter what money, it didn't matter. They just bought anybody.
Oh, there was some crazy signings in that period. I remember Julio Cesar, who was an absolute legend of Brazilian football.
Clive's covering his face, right?
Yeah. Rio Ferdinand, who was on his last legs. I mean, you mentioned Adel Tarapt. He's obviously a shining light in that period. But I remember I read Neil Warnock's book, and he talked about that period in charge of QPR. The book's really good, actually. I think he might have 2 or 3 books out. This was the second of his books, and it was all about a period where he basically... Yeah, it was about a period where he managed 3 clubs consecutively that went through ownership changes. And he talked about QPR quite a bit, obviously, because that was a successful period for them. And I loved the story of how he managed Adel Taarabt, because Adel Taarabt was basically a pain in the arse, but he was so good that you had to find a way to use him. And he got all the characters in the dressing room together, you know, the likes of Clint Hill and Sean Derry and those types, and said, lads, I'm making him captain. And they all kind of just looked at him and went, what? He said, listen, it'll work, trust us. And I don't think it went down well, but it did work. He took them to the Premier League. So, yeah. I mean, that must have been a really interesting period to follow the team.
Oh, mate, that was a wonderful team. Like, Taarabt was insane, like 20 goals and 20 assists in the season. Probably, along with Peter Whittingham and a couple of others, probably the best ever championship player, maybe, since it became the championship. Just insane and so good to watch. But it was a good team round him. Like, Ali Falling in midfield was absolutely insane. Like, such a good player. I think if he did his ACL 3 seasons in a row and it basically finished him. I think if he hadn't had those injuries, he might have played for Argentina. I just think he was that good. We had Helgeson up top, who was a good target man, and then like you had people like Tommy Smith. We had Kyle Walker that season as well. Like, it was a good team. It was a good and. Just wasted the opportunity, really. Like I say, went in the Premier League, ditched Warnock, signed loads of idiots and whatever. So, yeah, but just for that sort of 12 months under Warnock, just absolutely loved life. The most QPR thing ever. You know that episode of The Simpsons where Bart runs for class president and it's like, and at the end it's like victory party under the slide. You did vote for me, didn't you? No. And it's like the QPR player of the year that year went to Paddy Kenny because everybody thought that everybody was going to vote for Adel Taarabt. So they all voted for the others just to give him some credit. And then Kenny ended up winning it. And Taarabt went sulking off on the player of the year dinner, like walked out, couldn't believe he hadn't won it. So yeah, that's a very QPR thing to do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny with Sunderland fans. Warnock's one of them. You know what could have been. You know, he's close to taking over Sunderland at one point. But sorry to bring you up to the modern day, Clive. But you know, we talked about you're still potentially suffering from that period. So, what's the state of play off the pitch for QPR at the moment?
Well, it's complicated coming into this game this weekend because it looks like the manager's on his way again, which I think is a real shame because I think he's a good manager. And yeah, it's just a mess down there at the minute. One thing we've been vulnerable to all the way through with this ownership is people with good chat being able to talk themselves into jobs at the club. So, you know, going back, Warnock lost his job because Keir Jarabkin got in their ear about Mark Hughes. We ended up with Mark Hughes as manager. Then we end up with Harry Redknapp, who's obviously, you know, got this everyman routine, leans out of his car and everyone loves him and he's on ITV all the time. He talks himself into a job. You know, Les Ferdinand was the striker coach or the academy coach at Tottenham, and loads of time for Les, club legend or whatever. But he talked himself into the director of football role at QPR. And look, he didn't do bad, but he's not qualified for that position. Ian Holloway was doing all right, but Steve McLaren got in their ear and talked himself into a job, was a disaster. Mick Beale, who you guys know all about, you know, legendary PowerPoint presentation and gets you in the room and talks you into it. He talks himself into a job. So this is the pattern that keeps repeating. People with good chat, we're really vulnerable to it. And we took, when Les left as director of football, we had Lee Hughes as chief exec, who's been chief exec at Burnley, Southampton, Leicester, Fulham. So he's been around, he's experienced. He sort of retired into the chairman's role, and we've taken the director of football role and the chief executive role, we've made it into one job, and we've given it to a 27-year-old not long out of uni who's never done either job before. As a British-French lad called Christian Nori, who's, you know, well-educated, got good chat, has been doing the circuit, the football event circuit, and worked for companies like Retexo and whatever, but he's never been a chief exec, he's never managed a team of people, and he's never been a director of football. And he's doing both jobs at our club, and it's a difficult club to run. As I said at the start, the financial situation makes it a difficult club to run. So I just can't wrap my head around, you know, if you think about our chairman, you know, he runs Westports and companies like that. They run hotels. You know, would they put someone in charge of their hotel who's never run a hotel before? Of course not. So why would you do it with your football club? And I think the sort of fallouts at the moment and all the leaks coming out of the club and the manager agitating to leave and all of this mess, I just think it smacks to me of somebody he's not experienced enough. He's not up to that job really, and it's turning into a bit of a mess, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, Gav, listening to that, we've been there with an ownership who made decisions like that. It was seemingly like a mates club and stuff like that. But when you're in a period of stability, like maybe we are, scary to listen to, isn't it?
It is, and I think it brings home just how good we've got it. Really, we hear these stories every week, and as you mentioned before, Chris, the Championship is full of clubs with these types of stories where things are just going so badly wrong off the pitch, and makes you think about the some of the comments that our fans or some of our fans make about the likes of Christian Speakman and the owner, and you just think, we've got it so good compared to a lot of other places. We probably should relish what we've got and stop moping and whinging so much about what they do wrong and look at what they do right. And I feel for QPR fans because you could argue, we're coming out of the worst period in our club's history right now. We spent 4 years in the third tier, which has never happened before. And that all happened because of an owner who gave up, plunged us into hundreds of millions of debt, left us with a giant wage bill, completely destroyed morale right through the football club, not just on the pitch, but in every single area of the club. Morale was rock bottom. And that saw Sunderland go from the Premier League down to League One. And if we somehow get promoted this season, that'll be the official that'll be us drawing a line under that period. And it almost sounds like, from what Clive's saying, that QPR just, that they're not even anywhere near to being in that position where they can actually draw a line under the mess that has been left by owners who've just sort of, done a really bad job of running their football club, and it's sad.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into a period like that. I mean, you've already mentioned some names, Clive. I mean, some of the names that that have tried to crack it at QPR, and you've mentioned all the different reasons. Ian Holloway, Steve McLaren, you mentioned. Then you went you tried to go for the younger style coach like Neil Critchley and Michael Beale. But last season, you started with former player and former Wycombe boss, Gareth Ainsworth, and I think a lot of covering your face again. Sorry to put you through all this, Clive. It's former harsh therapy we're giving you here, but then the way he started the season, he lost 10 and won just 2 of the first 14 games, which meant you were second bottom and 6 points adrift from safety.
Can I before you even go into that, can I just ask for Clive's reaction of the hacker? Because that is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of Ainsworth at QPR.
Yeah, I think there's been a hacker up there. Yeah. Oh my God. I love Gareth. Great player for us. Totally out of his depth as a manager. Bad situation he inherited. Beale had walked out. Team had down tools. Critchley hadn't been able to get it going. Lots of loan players that didn't want to be there. People pretending to be injured and whatever. So you can't, and no money to spend. You can't pretend it was an easy situation, but just out of his depths. He wanted us to, I think, be sort of a championship Wycombe, a Wycombe 2.0. Like, we're going to have 10% possession. We're going to kick it long to Chris Martin. We're going to rough people up. And look, it just sounds arrogant, but that's not QPR. That's never going to fly at QPR. We're not very good, but you've at least got to try and play some football, I think. So, just miles and miles out of his depths in a bad situation. The hacker, again, it was something that had worked for him at Wycombe. He'd played for Wimbledon, didn't he, Ainsworth, back in the day, and I think he's still got a bit of that in him and the crazy stuff. We did actually
got a
win
few
the
Maoris in to do it though.
Yeah.
It was like me doing the hacker.
Yeah. Why would you film it and put it out? That's if you're going to do it, don't film it and put it out. We did actually win the next game against Watford, and nobody noticed. That was the only game that we won in the last half of the season, and it had been on our YouTube channel for a week, and we beat Watford, and nobody really said anything about it. And then the Tuesday night, we went to Blackpool and got done 6-1 at Blackpool. 5-0 down after 10 minutes or so. That was a long trip on a Tuesday, and somebody and it just went viral after that. They've done this and now they've lost 6-0 at Blackpool. It's oh God. why do you do it to us? But yeah, Cifuentes came in and rescued that situation when I thought we were dead and buried. So, yeah, I've got a lot of time for Gareth, but he was just completely out of his depth, which was a shame.
Yeah, I mean, just on that appointment, because that seemed to come out of nowhere. I think what he was at Hammarby before. I mean, what was the reaction to that appointment? Because I mean, were there any names on the QPR fans' hit list? Did they want, I don't know, someone to return, a big name or something like that? Did they want someone? Because that name must have come out of nowhere.
It's very QPR to return. We love getting an old player in. I mean, it's probably nearly Jerry Francis's turn again. So, like, Holloway's been back twice. Ainsworth, sell Lee Cook, buy Lee Cook back, sell Kevin Gallen, buy Kevin Gallen back. It's like, season 20 of the X Factor when Louis Walsh turns up again. It's like, so we'd looked at Cifuentes. He's basically a data and analytics pick, I think, from Andy Belk and our recruitment team. And like if you type his name into our website, we were talking about him as an option 2 years before we'd heard that QPR were interested in him. Around the time that we appointed Beale, then Beale walked out and we appointed Critchley. But I think at that point his buyout was off-putting because we were tight for money at that point, like right on our FFP limit, and Critchley had just lost his job, hadn't he, at Villa, I think, and was free. So they went down that route. But we had been looking at Cifuentes for a while, so it wasn't as big a surprise as you would think. And frankly, after Ainsworth, you couldn't do any worse. So he was almost coming in and having a free hit, and that the fans really went with him, liked the style of football and liked what he had to say. We'd done 4 or 5 managers in a year and a half. There was general feeling that it was a mistake to get rid of Mark Warburton, and it sort of drove us off a 2-year cliff edge. And then we rattled through Beale, Critchley, Ainsworth, double lively. So, Cifuentes came in, said all the right things, got the team playing pretty good straight away, and the fans just went with him, really.
Yeah. Just thinking Kevin Gallen, thinking days of Championship manager 2001, 2002. I was used to sign him on there.
Very good player was Kev.
Well, that's it. So Cifuentes came in, like you said, he steadied the ship. I think he lost 3 in the last 19 games of that season. Then you got into summer. I mean, would you say that the club, because of how he kind of improved things, that they backed him, and then for the QPR fans, what was kind of the expectations for this season?
I'm really upset actually as we come to the end of the season. I think it's a bit of a wasted opportunity for us. We got to the end of last season, we stayed up like really in some pretty fine style. Won at Leicester. What did they get last year? 98 points or something. We went there and won. Leeds came to Loftus Road. We absolutely annihilated and beat them 4-0, which cost them their promotion. Who says Sky don't invest in original comedy? That was a great night. So you go in the summer, the huge overspend under Warburton and Beale rolled out of our 3-year FFP calculation. So we had headroom to spend for once. You've got this great manager who everybody loves. The team's playing well. Fill your boots. Like, let's go. And it just... pretty quickly last summer, you start to hear chat that the relationship's not right, they're butting heads over who's doing the recruitment and the type of players they're recruiting. Cifuentes was already making comments about recruitment in interviews in like one of the pre-season friendlies at Reading. I think we played 4 pre-season friendlies without scoring a goal. Start the season again with 1 win in the first 16. And, I think we've done really well to survive and stay up because the team is deficient everywhere except centre-back, really. The way they've recruited and the team they've put together is deficient in both full-back positions. It's got a central midfield that refuses to turn around and play forwards. It's got 5 midgets that all want to play 10. It's got the worst 4 strikers in the league. It's slow as rust, and it's got no height, so you have to play Jimmy Dunn at right back so you can win the occasional header. You put on top of that, we've had 10 or 11 injuries for basically every game. I think we've named an unchanged lineup twice this season. The injuries have often all come in the same position. Like with Christmas, all the centre-backs are injured. Just lately, all 4 strikers are injured. You add all of that up, 1 win in the first 16 games, we've probably done really well to stay up, and we've done it with games to spare. So I think, he saved us from ourselves last year, taking over from Ainsworth. I feel like he's saved us from ourselves again. Other people disagree. I don't speak for all QPR fans. They say we should have done better. It's his fault. He's the head coach. He should have done more. I think with the team that we've put together, particularly the strikers, I think it's amazing that we're not going into this final day needing a result to stay up, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, bloody hell. But apart from all that, everything's fine. I mean...
weather's lovely today, look.
but, I mean, Gav, just from, imagine like imagine the chaos at Sunderland if we'd appointed, or if we'd had a new manager. Did all right last season, the end of last season. Let's say Dodds did all right at the end of last season. But let's say he started the season with one win in the first 16 games and we were bottom of the league and 4 points adrift of safety. I mean, imagine what would have happened at Sunderland in that scenario.
Yeah. It's. I can't imagine. Honestly, though, I do think, with Cifuentes, that he's somebody he was mentioned with our job, wasn't he? So he's obviously a coach who is well thought of, and I don't know. I just think it must be such a shitty situation though, because even if he is a good coach, he quite clearly hasn't had the tools at his disposal. Otherwise, he would have done a lot better. Wasn't there a spell though, Clive, where obviously you talked about that start of the season where the 1 win in 16 or whatever it was, but then all of a sudden weren't you touching the playoffs at one point? Like you weren't that far away.
I mean, you mentioned him, the Sunderland job. I think, as well as the recruitment last summer, I think the relationship did start to decay a little bit. I think he put himself about, or his agent put him about for a lot of jobs last summer. Definitely Norwich, Burnley, and you guys. And I don't think that went down very well with the hierarchy. And now, obviously, people are leaking that he's putting in for the West Brom job and stuff like that. So it's just getting messy. So I think that was part of it as well. Yeah, like. The 16th game in that run, we played Stoke at home, and the fans sang his name all the way through, just backed him. They're like, "You're not going to sack him. We're going to." It was like a collective decision from the crowd. They just literally sang his name the whole game. We got a 1-1 out of it. Gavin Ward treated us in the last minute, disallowed a Stoke goal for a spurious handball, and I think he would have been sacked if the crowd hadn't reacted that way that day, and if we'd lost, I think he would have been sacked there. And then we went to Cardiff on the Tuesday night and were terrible, but won 2-0, and it just started to build a little bit. We were terrible at home to Oxford and won. I think we went in Bristol City's half once at Ashton Gate and got a 1-1 with a goal from the halfway line. It just started to turn a little bit, and we started to play some decent football. And yeah, at one point we got to within 3 points of the playoffs, and then I don't think we haven't won again since. So the middle bit was great, but the start and end of the season have been horrendous.
Well, that's it, because we've talked about that lifting you. I think it was one defeat in the 13 games that followed that run of 16. That you said got within 3 points of the playoffs. But do you think that? I mean, obviously you needed it to stay up. But do you think that's almost, you talked about fans that are saying, oh, well, maybe we should have done a lot better. But because of that run in the middle, because the form dropped off a cliff again after that, you lost 8 out of the next 11 after that. But do you think that middle bit kind of masked a lot of the problems, and people thought, actually, we've got a better side than we think, and that we should be doing better, whereas actually you're saying he squeezed as much as he possibly can out of this side?
Yeah, the injuries have played a huge part in this bad run that we've had just lately. Like, we've just had about 80% of our wage bill is sitting in the director's box. And I think they expended a lot of energy to sort of get away from that bottom three. And I just don't think there's anything left in the tank at all. I mean, that was a carve up on Saturday against Burnley. It was, it's been a really bleak end to the season. We are what we are. I think we've won. If I get the league table in front of us, we've won 5 away games this year. And if you look at the teams that we've beaten away, it's the teams that are 24th, 23rd, 22nd, 21st, 20th and 17th. That's our away wins. Like, and if you read down from the top, the only team we've beaten in the top half is Blackburn once. Every team in the top half of the table We haven't beaten once, apart from Blackburn at home. And you guys are obviously our last one, our last. So we are what we are. That's how good we are. Really, I think he's 15th is about as good as you could hope with the team that we've got.
Yeah, and you mentioned the away form. Actually, I was looking at your home form as well, because I was looking at the reaction to the Burnley game, and I think basically it sounded like it was just men against boys from the sound of it and the reaction from the manager. But I noticed you've got the 4th worst home record in the division, and I've always thought, especially with Sunderland, and it might just be because we don't really like travelling to the capital for some reason, but I've always found Loftus Road a tough place to go to. But you haven't got the best of records this season.
Yeah, well, we haven't had the best of records for a couple of seasons. I think in that horrible little period of Critchley and Ainsworth, Sunderland, Coventry, and Blackburn all won twice at Loftus Road in a calendar year. And in that same calendar year, QPR had only won once. There were 3 championship teams with a better record at Loftus Road, more wins than we had. This season it's been more to everyone has a lovely time at Loftus Road. Day out in London, great pubs, close to Westfield, come to Loftus Road, 3 points, thanks very much. I'm absolutely sick of seeing people jump around that school end. It's doing my nut. So we haven't won at home since Valentine's Day, I don't think, and obviously that's going to prevail all the way through to August. We're going to get through to August now, and our last home win is going to be February the 14th. So yeah, put a bullet in me.
Yeah. Well, I'd say a lovely day, Gav, but it's normally about a tenner a pint, isn't it?
We try living down here.
Well, I'm just on the game we last played against QPR. If I remember rightly, we got battered, didn't we? Didn't Jimmy Dunn absolutely torture us? Bellingham got sent off, and we kind of struggled through to the full time whistle. If I remember rightly, we were talking after that, and we were like, "We're glad we didn't get beat there." I'm just looking at the stats now. We had 1 shot on target, 40% possession. We had Simon Moore in goal that day, because it must be when Patterson was out of the team. Yeah, we I think that might have been one of the rare days this season where QPR maybe got the better of somebody at home.
Yeah, we chucked everything at you. Bellingham got sent off reasonably early in that game, didn't he? And there was a long period you had to play as with 10 men, and we chucked everything at it and couldn't get there. That's happened to us 3 times this season, by the way. We've had a whole half against 10 men and not scored in any of it. So yeah, it's been. I'm really looking forward to the end of the season. Can you tell? I never want to see him again.
But mentioned the rumours about the manager. I think it was a big kind of breaking news the other day or last week. It was West Brom seemed to be in pole position, and I've seen a couple other clubs linked with him. I mean, look, I was looking at him, and he's just from the outside. I don't watch QPR week in, week out, but I'm kind of, part of me is surprised about the fuss that other clubs are making over him and trying to get him. I mean, obviously from you being a QPR fan, Clive, and watching him close quarters, I mean, are you surprised that he's kind of wanted by a lot of clubs?
Well, how much is he wanted? Let's find out what job he gets this summer. I think a lot of it is sort of agent talk and, putting yourself about for jobs. His career so far has been like 2 years in a job, and then he, like a monkey, once he's got hold of another branch, he lets go of that one and off. He's ambitious, and he knows where he wants to get to. He's moved from one club to the other and gone up the ladder. He walked out on Hammarby to come and join us in the first place. I do wonder how much of this West Brom stuff, the Sunderland thing last year, is his agent putting him about and trying to get him another job. I think it's pretty obvious he wants to leave. I think it's pretty obvious that the relationship with the CEO has just completely disintegrated. I think it's pretty obvious that QPR want him to leave as well, but we don't really want to pay him off. But also clubs probably don't want to pay his release clause. As I said, I don't speak for all QPR fans. I love Cifuentes. I think he's saved us from ourselves twice in 2 seasons. I think with a different manager, we'd have been relegated either last season or this. So I think he's very good. I might be wrong, and a lot of QPR fans disagree with me. So, don't take my word as gospel. If I was West Brom, he's quite similar to Corberan in styles and mannerisms. Same sort of football upbringing and outlook. Same system and style, you could see him going there and taking Jimmy Dunn with him and, doing quite well there. I think that would be quite a good fit. How much sort of truth there is in it and whether it's just an agent sticking him out there, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll come back on to Jimmy Dunn. But Gav, I mean, am I being harsh? Because, if let's say he got the Sunderland job, I think there would have been kind of questions asked about appointing someone with that kind of I talk about little experience, but someone with that track record.
Doesn't this happen often in the Championship though? You get a really unheralded foreign manager comes in somewhere, does a half decent job, and all of a sudden they're being linked all over the place. I mean, Danny Roll's another one who's at Chef Wed, and I think it happens every year. There's always somebody, isn't there? And maybe I think Clive's probably right. Actually, it's probably a lot to do with his agent, because I can remember the chatter around Cifuentes with Sunderland, and you could obviously we being Sunderland fans, we've got a decent understanding of how they appointed Reggie Slabreese, and whilst he was linked in online media and things like that to the Sunderland job, I'm not convinced we were ever really in for Cifuentes, but his name never went away, did it? When you saw the odds for the next manager, he was always there because people were always talking about him. It was on social media, it was on the clickbait websites. You couldn't get away from his name being linked to Sunderland. But I don't actually think we were ever interested, if I'm honest. So possibly it's just a case that he's just the flavour of the month, and at some point someone's going to give him a job. It does happen every year. There'll be somebody else next year. There'll be another foreign coach comes in, maybe at a team who would traditionally struggle, maybe get them challenging around the playoffs and stuff, and then they'll be linked with jobs all over the place as well. I think it's just something that's very common in the Championship.
Yeah, managerial merry-go-round. It's always fun, isn't it? But yeah, you just mentioned Jimmy Dunn, Clive. There's Jimmy Dunn there who's got a Sunderland link. Jake Clark-Salter, who was on loan at Sunderland as well a few years back. And then there's the obvious...
That gives us nightmares, that name.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you just think...
Remember his red card?
Red card all over it. Every time he makes a tackle, you just win.
At least you got him on the pitch, lads.
Well,
barely.
He was only ever on for 10 minutes and then going to
we haven't seen him since the Queen was alive.
Well, the other one is the pantomime villain in midfield, that is Jack Colback. So how are those three getting on? You've already mentioned Clark-Salter.
Yeah, Clark-Salter's the invisible man. Clark-Salter actually really good when he plays, but never plays. Jimmy Dunn's Player of the Year, has won every award, fans and player. He's done great. Don't think he's going to be sticking around. Unfortunately, he's out of contract. Nearly went to Sheffield United in January, so we'll see what happens there. Like I say, if Cifuentes went to West Brom, I could see him going there. And we've actually been linked with Darnell Furlong coming back from them this week as well. So maybe they can just do a job swap and we'll swap one sort of long throwing right back for another. Colback, yeah, booked for dissent again at the weekend. You won't be surprised to hear. He's done a good job. Like, we needed some experience in the team, and he's done okay. Unavailable more than available this year, unfortunately, and probably coming to the end now. But I think we're more solid with him in the team than without. Obviously, got limitations, and just a walking, talking red card, yellow card. But I quite like Jack.
Yeah, the Ginger Perlo, I think he was described.
Yeah, he's a bit of a stretch.
you know that nickname got him an England call-up? He had one good game against Man City for the Mags when he first signed for them, and he got an England call-up, and luckily, I think he got injured, because imagine if he'd have went down as one of the worst players to ever play for England, because he wasn't very good. We got rid of him, and the Mags only signed him because he was a Mag, and they gave him like 70 grand a week, which, I mean, was ridiculous. And like he was just a very middling player, wasn't he? I think his best football for us was as a left back. We had no left backs and we stuck him there, and he's all right there, isn't he? Otherwise, the Sunderland fans don't like Jack Colback because it was like a slap in the face, Chris, wasn't it? It wasn't that he was a good player leaving us. He just fucked us off for our rivals.
Is he a Newcastle? I could never work out whether you were angry because he's a Sunderland fan that went to play for Newcastle anyway, or he was always a Newcastle fan. What is he?
Yeah, he's a mag. He's a proper mag. He was brought up as one. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But that doesn't. Do you know what it is though? We've got one in the team now, Chris Rigg, who is, everybody knows he's a Newcastle fan. He's been pictured at Newcastle games, but he's absolutely adored. The fans love him because when he goes on the pitch, he gives everything. So it's not that he's a mag. It's not. We're not particularly bothered when the mags. There's plenty of them in our academy, but Colback he proper did the dirty on us.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, he scored against the mags and celebrated, didn't he? But yeah, I think, well, the only man to get in the England squad because of TalkSport, basically. Let's put it down to that. And we've spent far too much time talking about Jack Colback, so we're going to move on. The game itself, Clive, I think from what you're saying, I mean, can Sunderland fans kind of just think, oh, wait, QPR are travelling north and all their players are basically, they've got their flip-flops on, they've got their snorkels on, they've got their pina coladas, and they're on their summer holes already.
Yeah, no manager, probably potentially no manager, no players, and we weren't very good when we did have players, and the players that we have got are already in Mykonos. Like 0-0. I don't know. I'm not travelling with massive expectations, to be honest. Like, yeah, the most part, I don't see it being a Stone Cold classic at all.
Yeah. I mean, but let's get on to us, Gav, for the game. I mean, we've talked about previous pods, the lads off to Portugal to have this break and then come back for almost what is a 4-game season, starting with QPR to get us back into it. I mean, are we just looking at the performance? Are we just looking at how sharp players are? Are we just looking at the shape? Are we looking at patterns? I mean, what importance should we put into stuff?
Honestly, and I think I said this the other day, I think we need to win. And not for my sake, because I'm still very grounded. I'm totally on board with the approach we've taken. I think basically treating the last month and a bit as a pre-season was the right thing, because come the playoffs, we'll be fit enough, we'll be ready, we'll be sharp. What the cost of that has been is the results. We've not been winning games. We've not played well. That's the other thing. Performances haven't been great. But we've excused it away by saying, well, they're saving themselves for the playoffs. I think there's a recognition that this game, we have to win it. I mean, you listen to Dan Neil, you listen to Chris Mepham after the game, Regis Labrise, crosswords in the dressing room, having it out with each other. They're hurting from losing games. And this little trip away in Portugal, which again, Regis Labrise said will be like pre-season, they're going out there to train and train hard and come back fit and sharp for the playoffs. I think everyone's expecting a response. So whilst it might feel like a pointless game, because ultimately in terms of the league table, it is completely pointless. Doesn't make a difference to QPR's lives. Doesn't really make any difference to us in terms of where we're going to finish fourth. It's totally irrelevant in terms of the league. But I think for the purposes of how we go into the playoffs, it's a very important game. And the club have put tickets on sale for the second leg already, which is the start of the build to that game, telling fans, we need you in the ground, we want you here. I think a big difference would be made if we win this game. It's going to lift morale. It's going to get people looking forward to the playoffs. And I just hope we do, because yeah, it could be a 0-0 and we graft hard, but I don't think that's going to be enough in some people's eyes. I think we've got to win this one. Even if it's a scrappy 1-0, if we come off the pitch at the end of the game, everyone's feeling happy and celebrating, it'll make a massive, massive difference to everything.
I hadn't realised, or I'd forgotten that Chris Mepham was with you. Chris is like a huge QPR fan, and all his family are QPR as well. So always interesting when we play against him. If you guys get yourselves on Soccer Base and look, you remember when we won the playoff final, Bobby Zamora scored with the last kick and like greatest day of all of our lives and whatever. We had exactly the same season that you've just had, whereby in the first half, we just went roaring away. Like, autumn was fantastic. I think at one stage we went 10 games without conceding a goal. We just looked an absolute shoo-in. We then had a bit of a ropey point just as I think Leicester and Burnley or whoever it was tore off into the distance. And from about first week of February, it was really obvious that we were going to finish fourth. We were so far distant from seventh, there was no way that we wouldn't be in the playoffs, but we were too far away from the automatics. So we had basically February, March, April and May just knowing we were going to be fourth in the playoffs, and we were dreadful. We were so bad. I think we won something like 4 of our last 20 games that season. Away from home, some of the things we did were just an absolute joke. I mean, Harry Redknapp doesn't give a toss at the best of times, and he just phoned it in. Like, it was so blatantly obvious that we were just, we'll just wait for the playoffs, don't care about any of this. And the fans actually got quite aggy with it. I remember we lost, I think, 1-0 at Charlton, and the away end was a bit toxic with them because we had like this £84 million wage bill. We had all of these players, this ridiculous squad, and they were just tossing it off, waiting for the playoffs. And we were like, are you going to need momentum for the playoffs? Like, you're going to need like confidence and good mood, and the fans are going to have to be behind you. Like, you can't just toss it off like this. And then it came to the playoffs. We had Wigan in the semi-final. We did the away leg first and just put 10 men on the goal line, drew it 0-0 to make it a one-off at Loftus Road. And then Charlie Austin turned it on in the second leg, got us to Wembley. And then we got that spawny win against Derby where they absolutely battered us for 90 minutes and we played with 10 men and then scored with the last kick. So, you know, read into it what you like, whether how important momentum is or whatever. But we had exactly the season that you've just had and won at Wembley with a goal in the last minute. So, you know, if that happens for you guys, you're not going to be bothered that you lost 2-0 at Oxford, are you?
Well, it's nice to hear that because we've been racking our brains, haven't we, Chris, for a while and trying to think, has this ever happened before? And it's nice just before the last game to hear someone say that.
Well, you don't realise what you've done, Clive. You've said all the buzzwords, and we're going to clip that and stick it all over social media and put it in Sunderland fans' faces to say that it's been done before. And
congratulations to Coventry for winning the playoffs. Yeah. If it's as good as my other predictions, you lot are screwed.
I mean, with my betting hat on, I've got money on Millwall. Don't worry about that. But
Alex Neil, yeah, my God,
yeah, that's it. But actually, because we live in the bubble, Clive, it's always interesting to get an outsider's view of Sunderland and you know what you make of us at the minute and our season in general.
Right, I'm quite impressed. Like, because you were in League One and you were in League One for a bit. Like, the club was a mess. I remember, like, on your way down, I think Ebere Eze got his first ever QPR goal against Sunderland as like a 17-year-old. But that was the game that Jason Steele came wandering out the penalty area and caught the ball. And I was like, this lot don't even know the rules. So you go into League One and you like a complete mess. And I know that the end of last season didn't go particularly well, and there was the Beale factor and caretakers and whatever. But I like the recruitment. I like the team. I think that's even if you don't go up this season, it's good progress, isn't it? It's a solid. You know, you can see an upward trajectory from a club that for ages was like just a standing joke. You know. The Netflix documentary and the chief exec doing his Ibiza dance remixes and bidding against himself for Will Grigg and all of that. It's not like that, is it? So, yeah, I know Sunderland. I'm just always amazed because, like you say, it's a bubble. It's like 40,000 people, and it's the thing, isn't it? It's not like, you know, London's completely different with, you know, hundreds of clubs and millions of people and whatever. And I know. When it's going slightly wrong or slightly well, the fan base is just so rabid with it. But I think if you take a step back and look at Sunderland, it's good progress, good recruitment, good season overall, I think.
Yeah, well, you waited right until the end, Clive, and then you got your revenge by mentioning Jason Steele. You know, right at the death of the podcast. Brilliant. I thought we're getting away with it, mentioning all those QPR players, but
Another one would be Eberici Eze, who we actually had on trial at Sunderland and played him at left back in his trial game, and he didn't make it. So that, you know, that there's another future star that we let slip through our grasp.
You're not alone in that. There were lots of old school youth coaches like, oh, he's not very good at defending, is he? He doesn't run about very much. It's like, guys, have some imagination.
Yeah. But I was aiming to end on a slightly optimistic note, but unfortunately, I'm going to ask you if you're optimistic about the future and next season, Clive, because obviously with this season finished.
Look, let's see who the manager is. Let's see if they learn from last summer's recruitment. I don't have a lot of faith in the people that are running the club at the minute, unfortunately. I would love to be wrong. If QPR are scoring goals and winning games next season, honestly, there'd be nobody jumping around the away end more aggressively than me. If QPR are winning, I don't care, but I have big concerns about how the club's being run and who's running it at the minute. And, add that to previously discussed financial limitations on what we can do and who we can buy. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the summer, and I'm not looking forward to coming back in August as it stands, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I assume with the situation, you're not travelling north at the weekend?
Oh, I'm definitely travelling. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like of course. Somebody's got to, haven't they? So yeah, it may as well be me.
Well, is it going to be like
it's Magic weekend at Newcastle, innit? So that's my excuse. I can pretend I'm going for rugby league and then just stick my head round the Stadium of Light for half an hour, and But so yeah, of course, yeah. There's 10 of us coming, of course.
Brilliant. Well, I'll tell you what, there's not much hardcore support than that coming all the way up north. But and Gav, you'll be there. Oh, you're bailing, aren't you, this week?
Yes, I'm best man at a wedding, so I'm going to miss out on all the fun.
Yeah. Well, get
yourself a good one.
Playoffs. That's it. You'll have the camera. It's vows, and you've got the camera right there. Just
Oh yeah, I'll be watching it. I'll be finding a way to watch it. Don't worry about that. But I'm not going to be at the actual game.
You should present the ring like on the phone, with the match on, and so he can see the score and stuff like that.
The way the ring's being presented is actually a million times worse than that. I've got to get it off the dog's collar. The stitch is right up with that one.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing all about that next week. But Clive, I hope you have a cracking weekend. The score doesn't matter too much either way. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much, Clive. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll maybe do this all again next season if it goes
you
on.
Guys hope not, right? Good luck in the playoffs, lads. It's been great to talk to you.
Brilliant. Good stuff, Clive. And Gav, we're going to be back. We've got loads on, haven't we? We've got loads planned.
Oh, aye, there's loads going out this week, mate. Every day. Trying to get rid of us, these Sunderland fans. We're like a bad smell.
We're even
or a good smell. I don't know. Maybe a good smell.
No, I've been in those away ends. It's never a good smell. But yeah, even though you're buggering off to France, we'll carry on. We'll troop on.
Yes. We'll be about.
Good stuff. Well, thanks again, Gav. Cheers. And thanks again for everyone for listening. As was said, we've got loads of pods that are coming thick and fast, even though we're coming to the end of the season and we're going to move into that playoff period. So we're going to be talking lots of probably about past and present in terms of the playoffs. And I'm sure one will be dropping very soon with the rate we're going out. But from us, bye for now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.